right, let's get started setting up our new Microsoft 365 account. The first thing we're going to go ahead and do is open our browser and go to portal.office.com. We're going to go ahead and log in using the email address and password that were supplied to us when the account was set up. These are set up by Microsoft or by your Microsoft partner. These are temporary credentials, so this is not something that you're going to have to live with here. In fact, one of the things we're going to quickly do is get past all of this. But the first step here is to just go ahead and get logged in. So let's get that done. As I said, we're going to go ahead and enter in that email address there. In this case, you can see an admin at and a password. We're going to use those credentials that were temporarily assigned to log in. And the first thing it's going to go ahead and do is ask us to enter in and create a new password for the account. So first, we're going to have to enter in the current one again here, but quickly we're going to go ahead and create a new password for this account. Again, this is only going to be temporary. Literally, we can get past this in a matter of minutes, but just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and get this done. So once we complete that process, we're going to come in here into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And we're going to see a bunch of stuff on the screen here, but the most important thing is we're going to go into the guided setup there. So we're going to click on that guided setup button there. It's a hyperlink that's going to take us right into the rest of the process. So let's go ahead and get that done. And this is where we're going to go ahead and begin the process of linking our domain, our website, to our Office 365 or Microsoft 365 account. So it's going to ask us right here, do we have a website? Do we have a domain? Yes, we're going to go ahead and enter that in here and continue the process for registering our domain with Microsoft 365. So here we're going to go, and before we get much further along, one of the things we're going to need to have is we're going to need to have basically whoever has administrative access to our website, our domain. We're going to need access to that. If you have it for yourself, fantastic. If there's someone else in your organization who manages that, we're going to need to work with them wherever you've gotten your domain from, whether that's GoDaddy, that's Hover in this particular example, or some other source. Wherever we've gotten our domain from, there's probably a setup similar to this where we can come into the domain itself. And what we're going to need to do is go into the DNS settings in here. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So this is going to be our process for registering our domain with Microsoft 365. So we're going to need to come in and we're going to need to add some DNS records on the domain. It's going to tell us here, right now we're still in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, but it's telling us what we need to go ahead and do to add the different types of records that we're going to need to add in the DNS settings on our domain. We're going to need to add 3 different types of records in there. So we're going to need to add an MX record, and this is the instructions in here for how to go ahead and do that. That's one step. And here we can see we're going to add our text records, our MX records. We're going to go ahead and verify with a text record. We're going to follow these instructions to go ahead and register our domain. And then once we've gone ahead and connected our domain, we're going to come to a screen that looks like this. And over here on the left-hand side, you can see we added the domain, we connected the domain. This lets us know we've completed the process. It's asking us if we want to help people use Microsoft Teams. We're going to skip that for right now. We're just simply that continue button there and move along because we've got some other things that we need to go ahead and do now that we've linked our domain. So the fantastic thing, we've got our domain linked, but we're still using that original email and password login there. So we want to go ahead and get past that now. We want to go ahead and set up our email addresses so that they're tied to our domain. So whatever our domain is now going forward, we're going to have our email branded to our domain. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So we're going to go ahead and set up our user now. So simply go ahead and put in their first name, their last name, what their display name is, however you want to format that. But most importantly, what we want to do is go ahead and assign the username here. And however you want to do that, whatever your policy is here, whether that's first initial, last name at your domain, whether that's first name dot last name at your domain, or whatever it is you want to call yourselves, and whatever username you ultimately want to have tied as your email address tied to your domain, you can go ahead and register that here. A couple of other settings in here. We're going to have the system auto-generate a password. We're going to require the user to go ahead and change their password the first time that they sign in. And up to you, if you're administering this account, if you're setting this up for someone else, what you might want to do is click this button in here to send the password in an email upon completion. That way, they'll get new credentials. And if I click that button there, it's just simply going to open a window, a dialog box there to go ahead and enter in the email address. That could be a Gmail account that you're sending it to temporarily, whatever it might be. But simply go ahead and enter that in. Once we've got this set up, we're going to go ahead and assign some licensing. So we can come in here, we can assign a product license, something like Microsoft 365 Business Basic, or it might be a different type of a Microsoft license in there, but we're going to go ahead and assign that license to the user. Does this user have any kind of administrative access? Now, if this is your first time and if you are the system administrator, so for example, if this was for me and I had set up this email account to be eklaus at and the domain, then first time setting it up, I want to get past that original, because right now our admin account is that .onmicrosoft.com account. We want to get away from that. So we want to go ahead potentially and then assign an administrative role in here. Now you can simply change that from the user there, click on the button to provide administrative center access, and then define what types of admin access. What you would want to do here, if you are going to be the administrator for the Microsoft 365 account going forward, is to flag yourself as the global, not the global reader there, but actually as the global admin. So you'll see the second option in there, global admin. You'd want to go ahead and turn that on. But otherwise, for regular users, what I would do is simply give them no admin access and go in and just assign them as a user. But again, depends on what role you're setting up here for the organization. If it's the first time and if you are the person setting this up, you are going to be the admin for this account, then turn that on, click the admin center on there and assign yourself. All right, so once we have done all of that, we have it set up here. We can go ahead and just simply review and then finish. And then you'll see you've got some active users in here. If we go back to the admin center now, we can see that we've got some users in there. We can see that we've assigned some licenses, and that's pretty much it. One of the other steps that we could do in here is if we still had, and we don't in this particular example, but if we still had that .onmicrosoft.com account tied in here, it would show up in our list of active users. And at this point, since we've assigned administrative access to another user, we could delete that and log in going forward using one of these accounts in here. And that way, we don't have to leverage that account anymore. We can simply be done with it, never have to worry about that again. We have assigned the full administrative access to one of our other users, and we're good to go. We can add additional users in here, and then we can start to get into some other areas. You'll see some other features in here, like multi-factor authentication, resetting of passwords. There's lots of things we can do in the future, but for right now, our account is set up. Our initial users are set up. We've assigned licenses. We are good to go. And if we want to check and just review quickly for any of our users, now we can go ahead and click on them as a user, and we can see what has been assigned to them. We can see their account. We can see what devices may be registered to them. But more importantly, we can come in here. We can see what licenses have been assigned to them and go ahead and manage our user accordingly. And that is basically it. At this point, we are basically done with our process. So That's it, folks, from the standpoint of setting up and managing our initial Microsoft 365 account. We're done. Thank you very much for taking the time to view this video. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and let us know.